All right, we've got everyone joining the room. I'm sorry that we were a few minutes behind. We had a slight technical issue, but we got it all figured out. So I'm going to give everyone a minute or two to join the room, and then I'll get us started. Thank you. All right. I think we've got about 100 people in the room, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to our webinar titled Long COVID and SSDI. My name is Andrew Wylam, and I'm the president of Pandemic Patients, which is a nonprofit organization that works to relieve the harm caused by COVID-19. Before we begin, yes, today's webinar is being recorded, and a recording of the webinar will be posted on our YouTube channel. Everyone who registered will receive an email once it's available. Also, closed captions are available. To enable closed captions, please use the Zoom toolbar at the bottom of your screen. So we're hosting today's webinar to share our expertise about SSDI and provide guidance on how COVID-19 patients and survivors can improve their chances of establishing eligibility for this program. If you are struggling with obtaining SSDI benefits, we hope the information we share with you today helps you get the benefits you deserve. For today's webinar, we will have time for questions during the presentation, so please use the Q&A feature to submit a question for our panelists. We will take time at the end of the webinar today to answer questions from the audience. So first, I'll ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves, starting with Joanna and then Jackie, and afterwards I'll hand it over to Joanna to begin today's discussion. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joanna. I'm a staff attorney with Pandemic Legal. I got involved with Pandemic Patients a few years ago, and I've been doing Social Security work my entire law career, which is about 10 years now. I'm from New York. I went to CUNY School of Law, and I've helped claimants obtain benefits from the initial application level all the way up to federal district court. And I am excited to be presenting for you today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jacqueline Piercy. I am excited to be here. I'll talk more about myself in a little bit, but thank you for coming here today.
All right, so I am going to get started. Just bear with me here. And here we go. Okay, so I'm really going to give an overview of Social Security benefits, what the process is like, what to expect, some tips, things and needs to know, and then Jackie will go into more details after I do, and then we will, as Andrew mentioned, go to questions. So I've explained a little bit about myself, but just a little bit more. I am part of the National Organization of Social Security Claimant Representatives, so we're a big network. Social Security, you can actually do federal. Because it's federal, you don't need to be helping clients in a specific state. You can help anyone all over the country. So that's a pretty common question that I get when I have consults. We do have clients all over the country. Just because I am New York based doesn't mean I have to only represent New York clients, and that means I can answer questions that you have no matter where you are. A little bit about Social Security. It is an umbrella program. Most people know about it in reference to retirement when you are hitting retirement age, but there's actually more to it. There's disability benefits, there's survivor benefits, there's family benefits, and disability benefits is what I'm going to go through today. So all part of the same administration, but different programs, different sources of funding, different eligibility requirements. The two main Social Security programs, if you are disabled before you hit retirement age, is Social Security Disability Insurance, that's called SSDI for short, and Supplemental Security Income, which is SSI for short. Both of them are for people who are disabled before retirement age, but eligibility, how much you get paid under those benefits and how you qualify differs a little bit. So for SSDI, when you work, you pay taxes into Social Security. You'll see that on your paycheck. And your employer pays taxes into it as well. As you work, you build work credits. And when you stop working, and this is an important thing, you have, similar to COBRA, where if you stop working, you have health insurance up until a certain point. You have to be considered disabled. It's usually about 5 years after your disability. After you stop working, you need to be disabled 5 years after in order to qualify for benefits. So in order to have that, you need to have enough work credits, which is generally 40 credits. But if you're younger, it might be a little bit different. And then you need to be considered disabled or blind. And for SSI, this is a government-funded tax program. So everybody pays taxes into this as well. And if you are young, you don't have enough work credits, children will fall under this as well. You would qualify for the SSI program when you're applying for benefits. This is income-based. You need to have low income. And then this has asset limitations around it as well. You cannot have more than $2,000 in assets, and things like a house and a car are not included in that, but things like a 401k or what's in your bank account, that is part of that. And when you do get disability benefits, that asset limitation follows you as well. And then, of course, you need to be considered disabled or blind as well. The process, it is a long, tedious process. Nothing about Social Security is fast. So please keep that in mind as you go through this journey. You can apply online for SSDI. There's a website. The application takes about an hour to complete. You need to have all of your doctors and their contact information, any testing that you've gone through. If you've gone through any clinics, any studies, anything like that. You need all of your medications that you're on, who prescribed them, any side effects that you have, your work history for the past 5 years, where you worked, what you were doing, and then other basic information like your address and whether you were married or divorced or anything like that. For SSI, you can start the application online, but Social Security hasn't quite updated this one yet. You need to finish the application either on the phone and somebody will call you from the Social Security office, or you need to actually go into your local office in person and finish the application. Really important to remember that just starting an SSI application online does not put everything through. When it comes to being considered disabled, there is what's called a sequential law analysis, and it's 5 steps. So what Social Security will determine at step 1 is somebody working at what is called SGA, or substantial gainful activity. That number is a number that Social Security decides every year. For 2024, it is $1,550 a month before taxes. If you are making more than that a month, you automatically cannot qualify for benefits. So as you can see here, if the answer to that is yes, you have an automatic denial. And there's not really much that can be done about that insofar as appealing. The next question is, do you have a severe impairment? Social Security looks at everything. And some people don't realize this. They'll say, well, this is the main reason I'm not working. You have to put everything down there, all physical and mental health conditions. And you let Social Security decide whether or not that condition is severe, because you don't know what group of severe impairments, what is going to push that over to a favorable decision. So if the answer to number 2 is yes, then you continue on to step 3. Social Security has what's called listings, and they've outlined what you need to have to meet a listing in physical and mental health. As of right now, there are no listings for long COVID. So we're kind of, as it's progressing, they haven't decided any kind of regulation surrounding it. So for long COVID patients, the answer to that will probably be no. But if you have other things happening, either with your mental or physical health, and you do meet a listing, a yes at this stage is an approval of benefits. If there is a no, you go on to step 4. This is the part where Social Security looks at your past work and they say, can you perform your past work? Generally, the answer here is no. They'll call in vocational experts to classify your past work and see if what they decide that you're able to do, which is called a residual functional capacity, that has both exertional limitations, things like lifting, carrying, walking, and non-exertional limitations, things like being able to interact with people, being able to concentrate, stuff like that. Can you do your past work? A lot of times we do get a no here. And then the next step is, can you do any other work? And this is usually where, when you do get a decision, they're saying that you can do other work. A lot of people may not realize is for Social Security disability benefits, it's not just whether or not you can go back to what you used to do, even if you've had the same job your whole life. It's whether you can do any job at all in the national economy. So it's a higher threshold. The stages of the disability process. There's the initial application, which is what I mentioned that you do online. Then after that, and a lot of this process involves waiting. Social Security will collect your medical records. A lot of times they will call you in to see one of their doctors. These exams are usually very quick and not really beneficial for the claimant. And then you will get a decision. And then usually that is a denial. The next step is the reconsideration level. You can appeal for this online. It's very similar to the first level. Again, you're waiting for a decision. At the hearing level, which is your greatest chance of success, that is when you are humanizing your medical records, you're appearing in front of a judge, you're testifying on your own behalf, and you're speaking about what it's like to be you on a day-to-day basis, how your diagnosis affects your ability to show up for any job for 40 hours a week, how things have changed since you've gotten your diagnosis, how your health has progressed. The hearing is usually where they do call in expert witnesses, such as a vocational witness, and they'll also testify, hired by Social Security Administration, but they're supposed to be an impartial witness. If you get denied at the hearing level, there's 2 other stages where the threshold changes, the standard. It is no longer whether or not you're disabled, it's whether there was a legal error done in denying your disability. And the appeals council in federal district court, that is more of a legal appeal versus whether or not you're disabled. If you do get a remand or you win at either of those 2 levels, appeals council or federal district court, it gets sent back to the hearing level, and you do again have to appear in front of a judge most of the time. The really important things to remember, deadlines. Make sure when you are filling out, Social Security will almost always contact you by mail, sometimes by phone, but they'll never ask for things like your Social Security number or any information like that. So please keep that in mind. They will send you forms, which Jackie will speak a little bit more to later. If you get denied and you have to appeal, everything has deadlines. So please make sure that you are within the 60-day deadline to appeal, that if they send you forms and they tell you, please send that in by, September 25th, that you get that in. Keep those deadlines in mind, because that's where a denial can come around, or you lose your right to continue in the process. And you don't want to do that for just keeping the calendar in mind. With long COVID, a lot of people, the next thing is data. A lot of people get diagnostic testing that comes within normal limits. You're dealing with maybe a care team that there's a little bit of an uphill battle. If you are experiencing fatigue and symptoms like that, when you are having a bad day with your symptoms, you're not going to the doctor on those days. So what I'm telling all my long COVID clients to do is to see if you can download the Visible app, which is a free app, and you're able to track your symptoms. In a universe where we don't have we might not have as much medical evidence to back up your claim, this is a good log to submit. And then time. I mentioned before, it is a very long process. Every stage takes about 9 to 12 months, depending where you are, sometimes longer, to get a decision. So it is slow moving no matter where you are, whether you have an attorney or not. Social Security is very backlogged, and they're just working their way through things at a slow pace. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that the rate of denial is very, very high at the first 2 levels. It hovers around 65, 70%. Depending where you are, for the first level. For the second level, it's higher. It's around 75, 80%. Your highest rate of success is at the hearing level. The national favorable data is about 50% or higher. Obviously, that depends on the judge you get, which you are able to look up and see what their favorable rating is once you are assigned a judge. Right now, there's no data whether long COVID patients are having a lower or higher success rate. What I've seen in my networks is, it is an uphill battle. So it really just depends who you're getting assigned to, what judge you're appearing in front of. But we don't have long COVID specific data, just where it falls all across the board on a national scale. You are going to be, between applying, and you might not get denied at those first two levels, but I usually like to set expectations 2+ years before you appear in front of a judge. So please keep that in mind. There's, when it comes to figuring out your resources, and everything like that, it's going to be a lot of time, unfortunately. A big question that I get is, do I need a lawyer? Can they help? What is their role? In short, yes. Attorneys are familiar with the process. We can help you with forms. We can help you with deadlines. We do have access to your file online electronically, so you're not mailing or faxing or dealing with the local office or having to call or anything like that. We are your advocate. We make sure your record is complete. We can help alleviate that stress because you have someone walking you through the process. And disability attorneys work on contingency, so you're not paying a fee. It's just a percentage of your retroactive benefits, because Social Security will pay your benefits all the way back as long as you get a fully favorable decision. They just hold a part of that and they use that to pay your legal help. Either way, if you decide to go at this, it depends on your support system. If you decide to do this on your own, make sure that by the time you get to a hearing, you do have a lawyer, because they will know how to prep you. They will know how to preserve your legal rights. They will know how to cross-examine the expert witnesses, and they will help guide you through the hearing process. So an attorney can also jump in at any time. So if someone wants to apply and then have a lawyer jump in, that's fine. You just need to get an appointment of representation signed, and it's easy to go from there. So for me, that's it for now. I might have to answer some questions later, but I'm going to turn it over to Jackie, and she will be able to continue on.
I think Jackie might have had some technical issues and dropped off a little bit, but we can pause here to answer a few questions that came through.
Okay.
Let's see. If you're able to get SSDI, how does that impact projected retirement benefits per month? Are they unchanged, or does the SSDI reduce the retirement benefits?
So your SSDI, if you get SSDI, the amount that you get monthly is based on how much you made when you were working. So that's not a blanket number that I know off the top of my head, or could tell you. When you get a notice of award, they will let you know. It doesn't affect your retirement. The only thing that would affect your retirement is there is a penalty if you take it early, but if you are on SSDI benefits, they will automatically switch over to retirement benefits once you hit that age. And what I do always like to tell people is that just because you are on SSDI doesn't mean you have to be on it forever. If things get better, you are able to get off of those benefits and work, and you can still collect retirement when you hit retirement age.
Great. We've got a similar question. If your short-term disability is paying you more than $1,550 per month, are you eligible for SSDI?
So the way it works, and this is something that usually for SSI, it does affect that. Any income you have coming in, Again, there's that asset limitation that you have to keep in mind. For SSDI, you would report everything and it could affect the amount that Social Security gives you, but all that would do is when your short-term disability ran out, your Social Security disability insurance would increase. So you report everything to Social Security, you report it to the payment center, and again, in that notice of award, they'll let you know if anything gets affected. Also, if you have a pension or anything like that, your SSDI benefits are not affected by that. Unless, and then again, SSI is a little bit different, but SSDI is not affected by a pension or any kind of veterans benefits as well.
That's very helpful. Thank you. One
Mhm.
more question, and then we'll turn it over to Jackie. Does your spouse's income affect you?
For SSI, it does. If you are married, they do look at so the $2,000 asset limitation increases. But if you are married and your spouse makes too much, you might not qualify for SSI because of that. If it is SSDI, it is not affected if you are married.
All right. Now we can turn it over to Jackie.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry, I had a little bit of technical difficulties on my end here, so I missed a little bit. Okay, something else is, I'm so sorry. Hi, are you there? Sorry.
We're still here, yep.
We can hear you.
Okay, let me see if this will work. I'm gonna try to do a to present my screen. Can you see my screen? I'm so sorry.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, I need a little bit of minimize here. Okay. Hi, everyone. Again, thank you for Joanna and Andrew for allowing me to be here today. I had it all prepared for you guys, but as you know, for someone who has a loan code patient, things doesn't always go our way. So please bear with me. I'm having difficult technical difficulties here, but I will try my best to provide some information for you today. Like I said, thank you again. Just a little bit about me. Oh, I went over. I have a background of studies in the field of psychology and family studies. Right after college, I went to work in the field of social services. For the past 12 years, I worked at the state of Maryland Disability Determination Services as a disability examiner. During my time as a disability examiner, I have gained knowledge and skills to adjudicate disability cases. In 2022, things changed for me. I had difficulties concentrating at work, and I was experiencing fatigue that made it very difficult to work a 40-hour work week. I was fortunate that my work offered a medical retirement option. So in July of this year, I officially retired. This was a bittersweet decision that took a lot of trying to figure out if this is really the right thing for me or not. The job that I enjoyed and felt like I did well became challenging to sustain. So my goal for today is to provide some insights regarding Social Security disability from a disability examiner's perspective. It is my hope that you find it useful and at least a little bit of comfort knowing that you are not alone. Invisible illness, such as long COVID, is a challenging condition because of the lack of objective findings. For most of us, our imaging, actually, for me, all of my imaging were normal, despite having stroke-like symptoms and cognitive decline. the fatigue is not something that an x-ray will show, but man, it can be so debilitating. So with that in mind, let's dive into my section over here. So I'm being transparent with you all. I lost all my notes just before I logged on. So I'm going basically based on my heart by now. So just bear with me, please, and Matt, just think that I am also a patient. Oops, sorry. The most important thing before you apply is to think about what you can do now. And one of that is finding the right doctors to that will listen to you and also support you. And I know for long COVID, it's hard because all of our illnesses are sometimes difficult to be seen in objective findings. So it's important that we have a team of medical providers that are willing to think outside of the box and to support and listen to us. Okay. And perhaps one of the most important thing is reading your medical records ahead of time. And this is not your summaries. This is your full medical records, often can be found under notes if you're looking at your portal. You want to make sure that you are reading the full records and it's reflecting what you are saying to your medical doctors. I'm just going to give you a quick example of my records. So this is from my electrophysiologist. It says irregular neurological findings without a clear explanation despite extensive neurologic cardiology evaluation. When I read that, I did not like it because it's not consistent with my with what has been happening to me. And as you know, with long COVID, it usually takes us months to finally find someone that would do our tests or any imaging objective findings rather would show up. So I did not want to discredit what other providers had done. So with that, I asked the provider to fix that, which they did and corrected that. And why does this matter? This matters a lot because when you look at this, it says, irregular neurological findings without clear explanation. That to me, it shows that despite all of our symptoms, right, we don't have an explanation. But long COVID is an explanation to me, right? So you want to make sure that you have a, a, a diagnosis that is on your records. What you're saying to your doctors when you go in is consistent and it's written down. Because if it's not written down, Social Security, your disability examiners will not know that. So to me, your medical evidence speaks for itself. It's what drives your Social Security disability claim. Some disability process here. So first you apply online, Social Security, or you're in person or by phone or by mail, whichever you prefer. Social Security reviews your application based on the non-medical eligibility requirements. So for SSDI, one of the things they look at is if you have enough credit, do you have the 40 credits to be eligible for that. For SSI, they look at your resources. So that is something that is strictly the field office will review. Me as an examiner, that is not something that it falls under our division. So once Social Security is done with their non-medical review, it gets forwarded to your local state DDS, Disability Determination Services. And they are the one that's responsible for developing the medical evidence of your case. They are basically your final determination on whether or not the claimant is disabled or not. So by the time the DDS timeline here, so when an examiner is assigned, let me back up. Your case is assigned to a disability examiner. That is your main go-to person. That is the person who is going to review requests, your medical records, and they're also your main contact person. You will be hearing from them. Sometimes they will either send you a letter or call you out of nowhere. Actually, the call is just so random, which is, you know, a little bit kind of hard for some people. Often my claimants mistaken me from being a spam call or fraud call is because of that. By the time, please note that by the time we get your claim, so from the time you applied for disability and turn in your application, by the time a disability examiner has a hands on your case, it's probably 3, 6, 10 months had passed, if not even longer than that. So we as examiner are trained to, on day one that we receive your claim, we're trained to get updated information because of that huge of a backlog. So when we call, just please make sure you answer the calls and provide the information needed. So we're back to stage 4 here. Once we review your medical evidence, it gets forwarded to our in-house physician. We have a mental health and a medical consultants, and they're the ones that put in your medical input. There is a form that they have to assess, and that is the RFC and MRFC. We're not going to dive into that because that is more very detailed, but that is something that they complete based on the medical evidence and what you are, the maximum amount that your remaining ability to do sustained work. And then it goes back to disability examiners, and then they do their, there is the vocational part of the process, and then it gets sent back to the field office, your Social Security, and they're the one that they're the one that notifies you of your determination whether someone is disabled or not. Please note that Social Security is not a temporary disability. We receive some calls, when a claimant calls and say, I'm only applying for 3 months, because I can't work right now. That is not what Social Security is. They're very, Social Security adheres to their criteria of inability to sustain work, or your condition will last 12 months or will result in death. So they're very strict on that definition of disability. Some input from me, please remember the due dates on the forms that they're going to send you. There are due dates on that. Please keep an eye out on that. If you fail to return it, they can deny your case. Communication is the key with your disability examiner. You want to, when you call them, you want to write down the questions ahead of time, what you want to ask them, and very specific. Don't call and say, did you get my records? Because that doesn't really narrow it down. When you call them and there's a specific exam that you're looking for, such as, let's say you have a psychological evaluation that was done, you would want to ask, did you receive that psychological evaluation dated this by Dr. this? And that way you know exactly that they have those forms or those records. Now, this particular form, it's called function report form, which is SSA 3373. Your disability examiner will mail this to you to complete. My first advice to you is do not panic when you get this because it can be intimidating. This form has about 9 pages long, at least since June. So things may have changed by now, but it is very intimidating form. Uh, I have had claimants that would call me and, fresh from the mailbox say, oh my God, what is this? Please do not do that. Uh, just take your time if you need to. I know with long COVID patients, we have issues with concentration. So the key is to take it section by section, take your time, answer it. They give you about 10 days. And if you need an extension, you can ask your examiner to give you one. But the key is to not overplay or underplay your symptoms and conditions. So this form is very important because it's our chance as patients to give Social Security an idea on how our days are, on how our symptoms is affecting our ability to work, how our symptoms is debilitating to us. So this is our chance to have a voice about our symptoms and our conditions. I want to stress to you that this form, whatever you write in that report form, should be consistent with your medical evidence. So what you are saying on this form, you also should be discussing it with your medical providers. If you are experiencing fatigue, for instance, you want to make sure your providers are aware of that. With this forms, you would want to avoid using words such as never. Let's say I never go out. If that is really the truth, then by all means, yes. But if there is a little bit of a chance that you are still going out, right? There's nothing wrong with that. You have to be consistent with what you are reporting, especially for invisible illness patients. Disability examiners and the medical providers rely on this a lot. Also, please be very specific when you are answering the questions regarding sitting, standing, and walking and lifting. These are kind of work-related tasks. So if you are, when you answer this question, be very specific, the difference between when I'm working versus when I'm at home. So this is, for instance, you can say, at home, I can sit X amount of time. When I'm working, I can sit X amount of time. So you want to make sure that those two different key things are separated. Your work history, which is Form 3369, as Joanna mentioned to you, the sequential evaluation. This is very important in step 4 and 5 of the sequential evaluation process. This will deny your case if you do not complete this entirely. Social Security has done a lot of changes to make the vocational part of the sequential evaluation fluid and consistent across the country. So in the past, we have to do 15 years of your work history. Now it's down to 5 years. And I just looked the other day, the form, it's revised. It's very straightforward. You need to make sure that you answer each of the things that they are asking you in there. The purpose of that is so the examiner can do their work at step 4 and step 5 of the sequential evaluation. I had to, when I was an examiner, I had delays in completing the disability claim because the form is not completed entirely. When you submit your forms, okay, I want to just be clear that what Social Security is requesting versus DDS, the state, is different. They may look similar, but they are not. So when your examiner, the state, asks you to complete such as your work history forms or your function report form, you want to make sure that you follow the instructions on how they want you to submit that. You can submit that by fax usually or by mail. It's very rarely that they see claimants in person, but you would want to make sure it goes to them rather than you dropping it off as you dropping the form off at your Social Security, because these forms are not something that Social Security needs. So therefore, it is not their priority to process these forms for you. Okay, they don't, they're short staffed usually. So they sit there and sometimes they do get lost. So you just want to make sure that when DDS asks for specific forms, that you send it back to them. And perhaps this is one of the important thing is that do not compare your situation to others. I had a lot of claimant that calls in and say, oh, well, so and so got approved on the first month. You know, my neighbor got approved, and yet how come I'm not approved? You know, why did you guys deny me? Please focus on making sure you spend your energy on gathering your medical records. You are submitting and communicating your symptoms to your disability examiner and to your doctors. And again, like I said earlier, please make sure you use your time effectively with your examiner. Most of these examiners has really high pending. We're talking between 80 to 150 claimants, if that, if not more than that. So they are under a lot of pressure, and they also have to follow strict guidelines, Social Security policies. So please make sure that you, when you call them, be very specific with what you need from them. Some specific exams that I thought would be beneficial for invisible illnesses, and this is not all of them. This is just based on my own experience with cognitive symptoms. You want to make sure that you at least have not make sure, but the DDS will be looking for psychological evaluation done by a licensed psychologist and psychiatrist. This tests are cognitive. There's different domains that they look at when they do these tests. So that's one of the tests that usually we would need. If you do not have this, I know this is difficult to obtain and also expensive to get done. They can, if DDS believes that they need this and that they cannot make a decision on your case without this, they will send you for a consultative examination. Now, once we're on the topic of consultative examination, there's a lot of anxiety towards that. Based on my experience, they don't know why we're sending them for an exam when they have their own providers. So please note that Social Security is a complex program that sometimes requires specific tests, lab work, So if they feel that they need to send you for an exam, they will ask you for one. Let's see here. Also, your medical records, they're gonna be requesting your medical records from a year prior to the date that you said that you became disabled. So for instance, if I say I became disabled as of March 3rd, 2024, they will request your medical records March 3rd, 2023. And you also want to make sure that you at least have recent medical exams in the last maybe 3 to 6 months. Also, I wanted to go back to consultative examination real quick here. I belong to Sjogren's Foundation, Sjogren's support group. And the other day, there's a person that asked for assistance on how to handle her exam, on what to do. The other people on that board says, oh, fake it, do the worst that you can do. That's how you will win. That is not how consultative examination works. I want to be clear to you. Please do not do that, because that is going to backfire on you. Social Security is teaching, had stressed the importance of being consistent, and you don't want your case to be flagged as fraud, basically, right? Because they will know. They will know if someone is malingering or someone just refused to do the test because they think that not because of their condition, but only because they think that that will grant them disability. Just remember that these are doctors that are trained. These are disability examiners that are trained to be on alert on things like that. We had claimants that specifically would not do any testing not because of their limitations, but clearly it's because of their choosing, of their thinking that this will grant them disability. And for both of them, their case were denied. Another test that I could think of for POTS, autonomic disorder, I'm sure many of you are experiencing some sort of autonomic conditions. There's the tilt table test, QZART, the sweat test, skin biopsy, if you have small fiber neuropathy, which I'm finding it's all part of the autonomic nervous system. And then if you are also seeing POTS clinic, your cardio office visits, notes, those are important things to have. If you have any respiratory involvement, that's a pulmonary function test is also one of the things that you may want to consider getting done. Talk to your pulmonologist for this. If you do not have that, and if you have a moderate, or if you have any respiratory involvement, your examiner may ask the in-house physician if a pulmonary testing is needed. So then they will ask you for a CE if they think that that is needed to move your case forward. Please remember, your disability examiners are humans too. We often, because I have to be honest, Social Security are sometimes hard to get hold of. Okay, that's just an honest truth. So by the time your case is assigned to disability examiner, as I stated earlier, it could be months, if not close to a year. So you get this call and you're like, yes, finally someone from the government is paying attention to me and calling me, right? And then, you're excited, but then your examiner is overworked. So they may not be very friendly when you call them. So just please just understand that there are two humans with a lot of responsibilities. It's a lot on their shoulders. That's just it. If you need to reach me, I can be reached. You can email me at info@ourplacemd.com. Again, thank you for allowing me here to have a platform to talk to you about my journey and to share a little bit a disability Social Security disability from a disability examiner's perspective. Social Security is a complex program. However, I want you to know that you are not alone. We are all in this together, experiencing the same symptoms. Most of us have similar symptoms, rather, and we are too struggling with continuing our work. So my hope is that you have a little bit of knowledge about disability process, and I wish you all the best. Thank you again for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Jackie. We've got about 10 minutes left in our session today, so I'd like to spend the rest of that time going through some of the questions that we got from our audience. We're not going to be able to get through all of them. We have over 60 in the queue right now, but we'll get just a couple. So the first question is, if you qualify for SSDI and then you get better, can you return to the workforce, or are you unemployable for life?
So you can get better, and you can go back to work. Just being on disability benefits, no matter, what age, does not mean it's like that for life. Social Security has a return to work program, actually, and they love when people go back to work. So it's good to work with that program. If you do return to work, you need to make sure you report everything, because you don't want to get hit with an overpayment, which will come years down the line and thousands of dollars later. So just make sure that you keep track and you report and you take notes. They do have, if you start working again and you realize this actually is not working out for me, I thought I would be able to do this, but I can't, they will allow what's called an unsuccessful work attempt, which is if you try within 6 months and it doesn't work out. So don't use that as a barrier or a fear or deterrent. Just make sure you keep track of everything and you report everything to Social Security.
Thanks, Joanna. Another question, does Social Security pay retroactively from the time of your application or just from the time you are approved?
So when you do your application, you have what's called an alleged onset date, which is when you are saying that you could no longer work full time. Depending on the time frame, if your alleged onset date, if you apply for SSDI, they can go back 1 year in retroactive. And then, so if it's years down the line when you're getting your benefits, they will go that far back. If you're applying for SSI, they can't go further back than the date of the application. Your alleged onset date is still important, but they can't go any further back. But they will, again, pay those retroactive benefits when you get that decision, however many months or years down the line. Andrew, you're muted. There you go.
Yep. How does the process of applying for SSDI change for minors with long COVID?
For minors, they would be going under SSI, so they would not qualify for SSDI because they don't have those work credits. So you can start that application online, but then you have to finish it on the phone or in person.
And any guidance for picking a lawyer to help you when there's so many options on Google?
Talk to them, see how comfortable you feel with them. I will say, because if you do, when you get to the hearing, you still have, the hearings are mostly phone or virtual, but you do have the right to an in-person hearing. So if that's something that you want, then go with somebody who's local or who will, physically go to the hearing with you. Otherwise, the whole world is essentially your oyster. Some people go by if they have experience with long COVID or not. if they have experience in, locally in their area or not, because you will get assigned to a local DDS and a local judge. So these are all just factors to keep in mind when you talk to them, see how you feel, and you kind of go from there.
And to add to that, if you'd like to work with Joanna, you can go to pandemiclegal.org and fill out our legal assistance form, and that will get you connected with her. And another question about lawyers is there a higher success rate when you get a lawyer involved earlier in the process?
It's not something I have exact numbers for, but having a lawyer early on really means that all of your medical records and your file is complete, because Social Security will collect records, but they might not get the most updated things. Lawyers will send out, or they should hopefully send out, residual functional capacity forms and try and get those filled out by your doctors. So it does help to have one earlier on, but definitely, as I mentioned before, don't get to the hearing without one.
All right, I'm looking through these questions. Is it true that if you have over 50 years of age, you have a better chance of getting approved?
Jackie, do you want to take that one, or I can
I'm
do it? You can do it. Go
smiling.
ahead.
I am smiling because this is actually part of my notes that I completely lost
Yeah.
in this presentation. So the answer to that, yes, you hear that if you're 50 and over, your chances of getting disability is high. There's some truth to that, okay? But because there's there's a grid, right? Med book, as they call it, that when you're 50 and over, your chances of Social Security sending you to work is a lot less than someone who's younger. However, and this is my big advocate for invisible illness, right? There are do not do not listen to that, because for for invisible illnesses, it's important that, again, it's really important that you are consistent with your symptoms, with your providers, your medical records is consistent, because I do not believe that it's because we're younger than 50 that we have less of a chance of getting approved.
If you are approved, are there limits to how long you can receive benefits? This person has a son who is 20 and awaiting a decision.
No. So if you are a child and you get benefits, Social Security will have to do a redetermination when you turn 18 as an adult, because there are different standards. Once you get disability benefits, Social Security has the right to do what's called a continuing disability determination review. It's usually like 5 to 7 years. It doesn't mean they're going to do it at that mark, but they are able to. If you get disability benefits and you're 60, they probably won't do a redetermination, but if you are young in your 20s, you're definitely going to have to deal with a few of those
Yes.
in your lifetime. So continue to get treated, continue to have medical records, and just be ready, because they're going to ask for that. And there is a possibility that they deny. And again, you have to go through this appeal process. You can have a hearing, all of those things.
All right. And one of our attendees is asking about the income limits. They were able to do a small amount of freelancing, and they have a couple of months where they made more than $1,550. It's due to a delay in payments from their clients. Will that disqualify them?
Social Security will look at they'll look at an aggregate. So if you have 1 or 2 months over 1,550, that's not going to automatically disqualify you. They'll look at it over that 6-month time period. And let's say you did a lot, maybe you did work and you didn't get paid for a long time. They're going to look at that as well. Like they'll look at that as well. So if, maybe you did, an example, 5 hours a month, and then they paid you for everything after 9 months. That's a little different. You're able to explain that. So.
Okay. And I think one more question. Do the Social Security Administration's doctors need to be an expert in a specific disability? So is it helpful to find physicians familiar with long COVID and related conditions?
The doctors that they call you in to see probably won't be long COVID specialists. So that is a point, that is where having your care team fill out forms for you and things like that is really helpful. Another thing, a lot of times people submit their doctors will write a letter on their behalf and they'll say, it is in my opinion that they are completely disabled. And Social Security will ignore that and it doesn't
Yes.
matter. If Jackie, you want to kind of chime in there.
Yes, they will ignore that. And you can call until you'll be upset and say, my doctor said I am disabled. What's wrong with you? As you know, Social Security has very specific policies with adjudicating a disability claim. It is my best advice, if your doctor is willing to write a letter, is that they give the time frame of how long they've been treating you and say, Jacqueline has been under my care for X amount of years, X amount of months, and these are her diagnoses. These are the treatment that we have put in place, and these are how she's responding to these treatments, and or not responding to the treatments. And I believe that this condition is going to last X amount of time. Or if the person they think, reached maximum medical improvement, you can also say that. But just a blanket statement saying Mrs. Smith is disabled, it's just not gonna help you at all.
And to add to that, there are what's called residual functional capacity forms that at least, a lot of attorneys have. We have that. You can always submit in the portal a request, and they speak to your very specific functional limitations that correlate to work. There's physical health, there's mental health. My colleagues have cobbled together a long COVID one. So that's going to be really helpful, and they'll view that in the work terms. And if you are a lot of, sometimes if people have short or long-term disability, if they have workers' comp, if they have veteran disability, they'll say, but I have disability through this. Doesn't that mean I should have disability through Social Security? They are not the same. There's different standards and thresholds. So just getting disability benefits through one does not mean Social Security is going to automatically grant you, or even they'll take that into consideration kind of, but it doesn't grant automatic disability benefits for the other.
All right, so that's all the time we have today to answer questions, but a recording of today's webinar will be posted to our YouTube channel, and all of the people who registered for today's webinar will receive an email when the recording is available. So thank you so much, Joanna and Jackie, for joining us today and sharing all this very valuable knowledge. We truly hope this was helpful to the people who attended today, and thank you again for attending. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.